Today, we're diving headfirst into a topic that honestly still baffles me with how widespread it became. We're talking about the COVID-19 vaccine microchip conspiracy. You know, the one where people genuinely believe they were getting injected with RFID chips or some kind of nanotechnology to track them, all supposedly orchestrated by Bill Gates.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those claims that at face value just sounds so far-fetched, almost like something out of a bad sci-fi movie. But it gained serious traction. I remember seeing it everywhere, from social media to actual protests. It really makes you wonder, how did we get here?
And it wasn't just a fringe idea either. I had family members, friends even, who were genuinely hesitant about getting vaccinated because of this very specific fear. It wasn't just vaccine hesitancy, it was, I don't want a microchip inside me hesitancy. It was deeply personal for a lot of people.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so important to discuss. It wasn't just a silly rumor. It had real-world consequences on public health and trust. So let's break it down. Ivy, from a purely technical standpoint, how feasible is it to inject an RFID chip or nanotechnology capable of tracking a person through a standard vaccine needle?
Well, RJ, it's pretty much impossible with current technology, especially in the context of what a vaccine actually is. First off, a typical vaccine needle is incredibly fine, right? We're talking about a gauge size that's designed to deliver a liquid. An RFID chip, even a tiny one, is still far too large to pass through that needle without completely destroying it or, being visibly obvious.
Right. I mean, if you've ever seen an RFID chip, even the really small ones used in pet microchips, they're still several millimeters long. They're not microscopic particles.
Exactly. And even if you could get it in, which you can't, for an RFID chip to track someone, it needs power. It's either passively powered by a nearby reader, which means you'd need a huge visible scanner constantly next to the person, or it needs a tiny battery. A battery small enough to be injected would be so minute it would die almost instantly, and where would it even draw power from inside the human body?
So we're not talking about some kind of futuristic Minority Report scenario here where tiny self-sustaining chips are floating around giving away our location.
Not even close. And then there's the nanotechnology angle. While nanotechnology is a real field and incredibly advanced, the idea of injecting billions of people with self-assembling, tracking nanobots that somehow communicate with a central hub, again, powered by what? And then what? Report back your grocery store purchases? It's just not how any of this works.
It sounds like something from a cyberpunk novel, not a real-world public health initiative. And then the layer of complexity involved. Imagine designing, manufacturing, distributing, and secretly administering billions of these highly advanced, self-powered tracking nanobots globally. The logistics alone are mind-boggling.
Already met as far as the right? The scale of such a conspiracy would be unprecedented. You'd need thousands, if not millions of people in on it, scientists, pharmaceutical workers, government officials, healthcare providers, all keeping absolutely silent. That's statistically improbable for even a small secret, let alone a global one.
Precisely. The sheer number of people who would have to be complicit and remain silent is a huge red flag for any global conspiracy theory. Secrets that big just don't stay secret.
And let's not forget the Bill Gates connection. That was a huge part of this specific claim. It wasn't just the government or big pharma, it was often explicitly tied to him. Where did that even come from?
That's a fantastic point, Zoe. The Bill Gates angle really supercharged this particular myth. It seems to have originated from a combination of factors. Gates has been a prominent advocate for global health initiatives and vaccines for decades through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He also, perhaps unfortunately, made some comments in 2015 about the need for better pandemic preparedness, which, in hindsight, people twisted to suggest he had foreknowledge or was even planning the pandemic.
Yeah, and then he also funded research into digital certificates to indicate who had been tested for COVID-19 or vaccinated. This was never about tracking people, it was about verifying health status, similar to a yellow fever card for international travel. But the word digital certificate immediately got conflated with digital tracking and microchips.
It's like playing a game of telephone, isn't it? A legitimate concern about pandemic preparedness, an interest in digital health records for efficiency, and then suddenly you're Bill Gates, evil genius, implanting tracking chips into the global population. It's such a massive leap.
And a convenient scapegoat, right? For many, Bill Gates represents immense wealth, technological power, and a perceived globalist agenda, which makes him an easy target for those looking for a mastermind behind grand conspiracies. It's easier to point a finger at a single, powerful individual than to grapple with the complexities of a global pandemic and scientific solutions.
Absolutely. It feeds into an existing narrative of distrust towards powerful figures and institutions, and during a time of such uncertainty and fear, people are more susceptible to explanations, even outlandish ones, that offer a clear enemy and a simple narrative.
That's it. When the world feels chaotic, a conspiracy theory, no matter how wild, can offer a sense of order. Oh, it's not random, someone is in control, someone is doing this. Even if that someone is supposedly evil, it gives a sense of knowing, which can be comforting in its own twisted way.
It's a coping mechanism, really, but the damage this particular myth caused was immense. Not only did it contribute to vaccine hesitancy, which prolonged the pandemic and led to more illness and death, but it also eroded trust in science, public health officials, and even mainstream media.
And it created huge divisions. I mean, think about the arguments that erupted within families and communities. People who believed this theory often felt alienated and attacked when others tried to present facts, further cementing their belief that they were part of a special, enlightened group that saw the truth.
I saw it firsthand. It felt like people were speaking entirely different languages. You'd present scientific evidence and it would be dismissed as mainstream propaganda or what they want you to believe. It was incredibly frustrating to try and have a rational conversation.
It highlights the challenge of combating misinformation, doesn't it? Because it's not just about presenting facts. If someone has built their identity around believing a certain narrative, facts can feel like a personal attack.
Exactly. And the way these theories spread is so insidious. It often starts with a grain of truth or something that sounds plausible, and then it gets embellished and distorted as it travels through social media echo chambers. Before you know it, what started as a suspicious meme is a deeply held belief.
And the algorithms don't help, right? They're designed to show you more of what you engage with, so if you watch one video about vaccine microchips, you're going to get an endless stream of similar content, reinforcing the belief and making it seem like everyone else thinks the same way.
It's a vicious cycle. So, thinking about how we move forward, how do we equip ourselves, and perhaps more importantly, the general public, with the tools to discern fact from fiction in such a noisy information environment? Because this microchip myth is just one example. There are countless others.
I think critical thinking skills are paramount, asking questions like, what's the source of this information? Is this claim supported by evidence from reputable institutions? What's the motivation behind this claim, and could this be financially or politically motivated? Just pausing and evaluating before sharing can make a huge difference.
And also, understanding the technical limitations, like we discussed with the microchips. If something sounds physically impossible or logistically implausible on a global scale, it probably is. A healthy skepticism is good, but it should be paired with a willingness to look at actual evidence and scientific consensus.
That's a great point, Zoe. The difference between healthy skepticism and outright denial of established facts is crucial. It's okay to question, but not to invent answers purely out of distrust or fear. And, sometimes people need a little grace, too. Many of these beliefs stem from genuine fear and a feeling of powerlessness.
Absolutely. It's not always malice, often it's fear. The pandemic was scary, and when things are scary, our brains sometimes latch onto simple, clear-cut narratives, even if they're untrue, because it feels like regaining some control. That's why empathy combined with clear, patient communication is vital when trying to debunk these things.
And consistency in messaging from trusted sources. When there's mixed messaging or perceived contradictions from official channels, it creates a vacuum that conspiracy theories rush to fill. So transparency and clear communication from health authorities are more important than ever.
Well said, both of you. So, to wrap up our discussion on the vaccine microchip myth, I think the takeaway here is that while the idea of implanted tracking devices sounds like a Hollywood plot, it simply wasn't scientifically or logistically possible with the COVID-19 vaccines. These theories, often fueled by distrust and fear, had significant real-world consequences.
And understanding how and why these myths spread, and how figures like Bill Gates become targets, helps us navigate future waves of misinformation. It's a constant battle, but one we need to be prepared for.
Let's all commit to being more mindful consumers and sharers of information. Think before you click, think before you share. It might just be the most important thing we can do for public discourse.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Ivy and Zoe, for this really insightful and important conversation. And thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time.